Hello everyone. Hello everyone. This is Tea with G on our regular week, not on the off week. Although I've just been feeling the impulse and the desire to do this increasingly often. Actually, I have a lot of ideas sitting on the side in a queue to address, and so I may be doing it every week again. I'm not promising anything, but don't be surprised if something shows up in your subscriber feed, and if you're not subscribed, you should be. Welcome everyone to Tea with G. I call it Tea with G because I really like it to be not feel so very formal. And by the way, this is a new little mic that I'm trying out that I'm hoping will work well enough that I'm get rid of a lot of the equipment that I have around. Well, in fact, the one mic is already gone, so I hope it does. Please let me know if it gets too soft or it distorts or anything like that, because I've only used it once before, so it's still kind of new, and I want to make sure that everybody can hear clearly. Somebody loves my hearing. Thank you. That is the Egyptian cross. It's called an ankh, and because the symbol of a cross has been around for a very long time, way longer than way before it was used as a Christian symbol. In fact, Christ even referred to it before his own. He talked about carrying the cross and the like. So it's a very old symbol that appears in pretty much every culture that there is. So on that note, let me change to the actual subject of today, which was not Egyptian crosses. But thank you. I like it. I like it too. First time I've ever had a dangly earring, right? So anyway, this is actually basically the same theme, the same subject I had for last week. What the hell is mind anyway? And this one is what is mind? But for some reason, it just something inside said, no, we have to keep going on this theme because it's so very powerful and significant. Because if we're really serious about knowing who we really are, and everybody who gets on this spiritual path eventually comes to that question, comes to realize that the spiritual path isn't about simply becoming a better person, kinder, more compassionate, more sattvic in nature, eating the right foods and taking care of yourself and others. That's all very good, well and good, and thank goodness that's a side effect of it, but that's not actually the primary mission. The primary mission is to know who you are, right? To find out actually who you really are, not just who we think we are. And when we start engaging in that question, in that inquiry, which is self-inquiry, right? I mean, that's where the phrase comes from, Atma Vichara. In Sanskrit, self-inquiry. I'm inquiring into who I actually am. And of course, nobody can tell you that other than you, which is really interesting, isn't it? Because everything else, for knowledge, we can go outside and we can find it somewhere. But if we're talking about knowing ourselves, then any knowledge gotten from the outside would be secondhand. It would be incomplete. It would be somebody else's perspective. It couldn't possibly be you. Thank you. Somebody was just telling me that the washing machines are now open because I tried to do laundry earlier today. Nice of my neighbor to do. As we decide we're going to do that, and we start going into the process, start running into a lot of stuff. We find it isn't a simple deal. We have all sorts of ideas and beliefs and concepts and and habits and memories and all sorts of things that we have been hanging around with, carrying with us for our whole life, probably lifetimes, that seem dead set against you finding out who you are outside of all the knowledge about you, accumulated knowledge and the like. And then we have to start kind of taking the whole thing apart. Well, what is it we're actually dealing with here? What are we doing with this? How do you do self-inquiry? And what is it that keeps getting so stuck, gets in the way, seduces me, takes me off to the side, always giving me incomplete answers? Well, the common answer in spiritual circles, especially non-dual spiritual circles, is that the culprit is the mind. So it behooves us to find out what actually is mind. Because many of us think of it, those of us who have been on the spiritual path for any degree of time, have gotten the idea. You know what? I've got a big stick of incense here, and it's a little bit too strong. I'm going to move it to keep me from over here where it's can permeate the whole room a bit better and not just get into my nose. Lovely stuff, but wow. I had to close the windows today because it's chilly today in Seattle. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, so what is mind? What we think of it as normally is, our ability for intellect and, thinking about things and coming to conclusions and making decisions and comparing and contrasting. All of which is a function that it does. But when we start dealing with it in the process of our meditations and our self-inquiry to find out who I really am, it seems to be this dark force that's trying to stop you at every moment. And we imagine that the mind is a thing generating all of the bad thoughts, all of the stuff that we don't want to think anymore, all of the stuff that confuses us, muddles us. Sometimes it can get so loud, we don't know which end is up. It's full of doubt, and it's full of desires. It's clutching, it's averse, it's got all sorts of things going on. But and so, as we humans do, we tend to personalize it. We tend to amorphisize it. Is that the right word? Yeah. Wow, it's still very strong. I think I'm going to just put it off here because it's like too strong. Too strong right now. Open up one of the windows. Wow, I didn't realize it would fill up the room so much. All the interruptions. Sorry about that. So it's not, as we think of it, a thing. It's not somebody there, this dark force that's out to get you. It's just a word for thoughts. Which is why I gave this the title, the quote from the Ribhu Gita. It's not the only place it says it, but the Ribhu Gita is very powerful. It's wonderful. If you'd like to listen to it's called The Essence of the Ribhu Gita. The most wonderful reading of it that I know of is from a Buddhist nun named Samanera Jayasara. And just a beautiful reading of it. But at any rate, the quote that I'm going to refer to. I even got it up here so I'd get it right. It goes like this. It answers the very first question, right? What is this mind except a bundle of thoughts? So, just to start with this, the first thing to recognize is that the mind is not a thing. It is a word for a bunch of other things. As Ramana Maharshi and others have said, including myself, the fact is there is no such thing as a mind. There is no mind. If we recognize the way our minds work, the way the functioning happens, is that we tend to make processes and functions and flows and things into things that aren't actually things. Right? A river that's just sitting there and not moving isn't really a river. It has to be moving. A wave, right, is not a wave if it's not waving. Right? We have to see these things not as things, but it's just a flow. Right? There's events happening, constant transformation taking place. As a matter of fact, that's all there is to all of life, is a flow. I could get into that there are no things at all, maybe on another episode. So, start with the fact that there is no mind. And if you want to verify that for yourself, take any thought you have, any thought, doesn't matter what it is, good, bad, or indifferent, and look back at the place where that thought arose, where it came from, where it appeared. You won't find a mind there. You won't find anything there at all. The thought just appeared. Boom. And almost as quickly disappeared. So the next part of this, of course, is, well, if mind is nothing but a bunch of thoughts, then what are thoughts? What the heck is a thought? And this is how the Ribugita put it. It says, thoughts except evanescent ripples in the still, limitless ocean of pure being, awareness, self. Ripples in a limitless ocean of pure being, awareness, self. Now the word evanescent is really amazing. It means imperceivable. It means it vanishes the moment it appears. Matter of fact, our English word vanish comes from evanescent. Right? The Greek word evanescere or something like that. It simply is constantly disappearing. And isn't that true of thoughts from your own experience? That the thought is gone the moment it appears? And it's almost as like they keep getting recreated. Right? So we would say, why is this thought back? But that's not actually ever true. The thought never comes back. It's a new one. It just happened to look like an old one that we remember because of memory. So that they're actually just ripples in the conscious awareness, being awareness, self. And who's that? Well, that's you. That's you, the one who's actually conscious of it, a ripple in consciousness. Now, the Ribhu Gita was written down about 800 years ago. Who knows how long before that it had been spoken, because a lot of things weren't written down. Although in India, writing has been around a very, very long time, so that may have been the first occurrence of it. But a lot of these things were taught as traditions. As a matter of fact, the Ribhu Gita is actually in the form of verses that can be chanted. Right? So that's how it first emerged. So, and it's fascinating to me to find out that in quantum physics, that is exactly what they say all matter is. A ripple in what they call a quantum field, which is non-spatial, non-local. It's outside of space and time. And that what we perceive as matter is simply a ripple in that, a vibration. Right? It condenses enough to form what looks like a particle. But the particle is nothing actually more than a wave. So it's interesting that little by little we're kind of getting back to that same place. So what then do we do with these thoughts? If we understand that these thoughts are just ripples in our consciousness, which means you didn't create them. You didn't make them happen. Follow the same process of taking a thought, following it all the way back to where it started, which isn't that long of a distance because they don't last very long. And not only will you find no mind, you'll not find yourself creating it. You'll see something that simply spontaneously arose out of this, what appears to be nothing. Right? There's nothing there except you. And your awareness of it. But there is a tendency in us. There's a tendency in the manifest consciousness, right, that which is all of this, the sense I am, to manifest a sense of a personal being. The I am becomes I am this or that. When that happens, the thoughts now begin to attach to something. Just this sense of I am this or that. Starting the very first one, right? The very first attachment is I am the body. It's the first thing that happens. Because prior to that, it's just undifferentiated consciousness. Right? Is anybody else having that experience about the microphone getting staticky? Right? Because if so, if this is something that's recurring, I'll have to put on my ugly big headphones and use those instead. Yes, me too, Mary. So it is getting staticky. So perhaps this microphone is not going to be working. That really sucks. All right. Let me go back to the my airplane pilot headphones, and I will just give me one quick second here while I do that. Alrighty. How are we now, everyone? Is this better? That's really disappointing because I really want to get a smaller microphone, and cause these are kind of clumsy to wear all the time. Anyway, where were we? Much better, everybody says. Okay, where were we? What do we do with the thoughts? Is it too loud? Very clear. Good. All right. What do we do with these thoughts that we have? Right? Well, the thought, as I said before, the thought in and of itself isn't a problem. It is not a difficulty at all. Otherwise, it's just like a river flowing by or clouds going by in the in the sky. So, what happens to make them into a problem? Well, there's a thought that arises, right? And it's the first thought. It's the essential thought. It is the thought that is the real pesky mischief maker in this whole self-realization path. And that's what Ramana Maharshi refers to as the I thought. Muji talks about it as the person, the I, the sense of I am, identified as a person, starting with identification with the body. Now, the moment that sense I am, which is actually pure and unbounded, and not stuck anywhere, and not limited, and not a person, right, takes on the shape of a person, of an individual, of an identity, based on the I am the body thought. That's where it starts. And from that becomes, the body now starts a whole cascade of identification, starting with gender and ethnicity and language and belief systems and culture, and all of that, until the sense of who I am has been encased in this I concept, this I am this, I am not that. Because the moment that forms, it's like a magnet, right, that starts drawing some thoughts to it and pushing others away. Make some thoughts recurring because this is me, so this thought keeps coming. And other thoughts just, no, that's not me. That can't possibly be me. And this is where we feel that sense. We all feel this in our lives. We all feel that sense of being constricted, of being kind of contained, of being stuck, right? We all have that experience. But because we're not aware of this essential I, the essential I am this or that arises, we attribute it to the circumstances that we're in. We say, oh, I feel stuck because I don't like my job. I need a new job. Or I don't like my partner. I need a new partner. I don't like my income. I don't like my car. We misidentify the source of the feeling of being stuck or being small, being contained. The feeling is accurate. I have to point out, the feeling is not wrong, right? But the cause of that feeling, that cause of that sense, it's been misguided simply because that original I concept, I self-image, hasn't been scrutinized. It hasn't been looked at. Looking at that is the whole point of self-inquiry. I am looking at the I that I think I am to see if in fact that is who I am, or is it just a bunch of thoughts. This is what they refer to, enlightenment or awakening, as self-realization. You come to see yourself as you actually are, not as you thought you were. Now this sense of I, this I thought, as Ramana Maharshi put it, it's not like other thoughts. It's not just the word I in your mind. Okay? And, oops. God, all sorts of things are happening today. I'm getting all sorts of little jiggles and stuff. I think it just had a little bit of a delay there, but seemed to be back. Ramana Maharshi referred to the I thought as like a spirit, impalpable, arising to consciousness. Like a spirit, impalpable, which means completely undetectable to the mind. You can't see it. To our normal way of thinking, there's nothing there. We don't realize that a thought comes up, and the thought, I thought, this spirit that identifies with it, comes up simultaneously. We see the thought, we don't see the spirit. And so we take that says, I am that, as being ourselves. Because we don't see this other thing in between. It's indetectable to the mind. It's not indetectable to you, because you are not the mind. It's not detectable to the normal way of thinking, the normal way we know things and learn things and examine things. But it is detectable to the subtler sense of you, that is the I am without identification. Is any of this making sense to you all? I hope I'm not just zooming by. And are you following this? Because it is incredibly subtle. We miss this guy. We overlook this guy all the time. And because of that, we end up getting into spirituality and thinking it's about self-improvement. We're improving ourselves. We're becoming better, more spiritual. I can meditate longer. I eat better. I'm more kind. I take better care of people. And that's the end. So we end up in this this process of making a better version of the person. So I'm having a lot of technical difficulties here, and I don't think it's on your side. Usually the internet here is like always just primo, and I never have any problems. But would you give me some feedback here, because just to make sure that I know you're all here and you're hearing me and seeing me, because it has been kind of flaking in and out. But you can all hear me. It's good. Hear you fine. All right. Perfect. So if you have any questions about this or anything you want a clarification on, because it's the heart and soul of non-dual self-inquiry. And the only reason we call it non-dual is because you're not inquiring into something out there. You're inquiring into yourself. Right? It's non-dual simply because I can't know myself the way one thing knows another, the way I can know my car or my friends or any of that. That's all dualistic knowledge, right? It's the subject and the object. I'm talking this person, I know about this person, I know about this thing. But when you're talking about self-inquiry, knowing yourself, you can't stand over on the side and look back at yourself. So it's not to. I'm not looking as one thing looks another. I am looking at myself as myself. It's a completely different way of self-exploration. So, thank you for that, JB. I'll get to that in a second. Let me close the window now. Sirens are busy. I live in kind of an active part of the city. Actually, Tabe, I'm going to take your question up. Too much introspection lead to paralysis of human action. The answer, if it's done correctly, no. If it's done with your mind, it will be analytical, and it will be one thought after another. Take it like this. Thoughts appear. Experiences appear. Stuff appears in your life. Right? All sorts of things are happening, including the your own thoughts, right, which are very intimate and very close. So close they go by. We go along with them without even paying attention, without even thinking about it. We never scrutinize those. But to ask yourself a simple question. You can do it right now as you're sitting here, listening to me talk. Right? There's all of the talking going on. You're hearing me, and you're doing stuff with the ideas that I'm sharing with you. Right? Now, just ask this question of yourself: who is it that's hearing the words that I'm speaking? It seems like, it seems like profound, but take a second and do that. Who's hearing it? Of course, the answer is, I am. Now, you can just go, well, I am, and move on. Or you can go, okay, well, I'm hearing it. And from there, the question is, well, who am I that is hearing this? Who am I then? Now, when you ask that question, if you do it in the way I'm laying it out here, your attention will turn from what you're aware of, what you're experiencing, towards you who's having the experience. Now, if you just say, well, I am, of course, and move on, you'll miss the point. But if you allow that to be, well, I'm hearing it, and I really want to know who I am. Well, anything that's out there that's happening, any knowledge or anything, isn't going to be able to tell me who I am. Maybe point me in a direction, at best, if it's a good teacher. But most people will just be their opinions of me, or their perceptions of me, or the things that I've been told, or the things that I'm thinking. Right? None of which can tell me what I am. Now, notice that doesn't make any of this unimportant. It just shifts attention towards you, the one who's actually experiencing it. And this gets more subtle when we start dealing with thoughts, which are much more intimate. I'll ask that question, who am I? And immediately there'll be all sorts of thoughts that appear. Well, I'm a man, I live in Seattle, I'm this age, all of these well, wait a minute, all of those are thoughts too that I'm seeing. Right? Well, So, since I'm seeing them, who am I? The thought isn't as important now. So suddenly even the thoughts about myself start to become a, a subject of the inquiry. And even our great non-dual thoughts that we have, our spiritual thoughts, like I'm the image of God, or I'm pure awareness. They're just thoughts. So you go, well, I'm aware of that too. And even if, let's say, some spirit guide or some incredible angelic being comes down and says, "You've been so good, I want to show you who you are. Show you the spectacle. It's wonderful. It's everything. It's the most amazing thing. Lights and angels, and it's expansive and oneness and everything." And you go, "That's nice, but I'm looking at it. So who am I?" If you take this the way I've laid it out and really follow it, keep pulling back from I am this or that, from any thought that says I am this or that, any thought, doesn't matter what it is, and keep going back and asking that question directly into the place that is quite obvious. You can't see anything. It's totally murky. There's nothing there. There's any concrete answer that comes isn't it, because you're seeing it. Okay? Then over time it will become more and more and more deep. It'll keep going in more and more deeply. Now, as that happens, right, the person of you, the persona of you, will become more kind, more gentle, more compassionate, more patient. All of those qualities that we want to cultivate in the person will all begin to appear. Right? Not because they're a particular spiritual behavior that you learned, but because they're innate, inherent in who you really are. The qualities will begin to appear even before there's a realization of who you are. And even if there is some kind of enormous awakening experience, you say, "Thank you, very good. And that was an experience which I had. Who am I?" And you just keep going. Now you can also approach it by simply putting your attention on just the feeling, the fact feeling of your own being. I am. I know that I am. Right? Because remember, the whole process of becoming entangled and compressed and constrained and stuck and all that came because the sense I am identified with form. I am the body. So I am this, and the I'm this keeps going. So when you're doing an inquiry, and every time anything comes up that says I am this or that, and you say can't be, you are walking your way back. You are pulling the sense of I out of identification with form, with things, with beliefs and the body, and bringing it back home to that which was there before any of this. Still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's who you really are. Right? So let me take a look at the questions here while I'm doing this. This is going on a lot longer than I normally do on these things. I'm hoping you're all you're all following. Fatima asked, "Do you think the source can manifest itself through two people? Like when you just know someone is your soulmate and you're constantly getting signals from the other person, meaning signs, synchronic? By that I mean I just know that he is my soulmate, not feel. How the hell do I know that from? Which is the best proof of non-duality, that we are not two. Well, here's what I would say, and it's a beautiful thing. And the truth is, there are people in our life that we connect to on such an intimate and open level that we could call them, this is my soulmate. Okay? But notice that there is still the sense of there being two. Right? And both the idea and the experience, which I'm not denying, right, of that feeling of just knowing, I would then say, wonderful, ask, to whom does this sense of knowing appear? That's not to deny it. Enjoy it. Lap it up. Right? But don't get caught, right, in the personal sense which wants to turn that into something that it's not. Right? It may start looking to it for all sorts of things that aren't actually there. And self-realization does not come from anywhere else except you. Now, the experiences we have all along the line, remember, experience is duality. And there's nothing wrong with duality. The non-dual, or the one without a second, manifests itself as many. Right? It's inconceivable to our minds for that it can't do that. It's one or the other. But that's exactly how it works. It manifests itself as many and never loses its essential nature as one. So what one experiences, manifesting as a deep affection, a deep love, a deep compatibility, what one would call a soulmate, is a taste of what it feels like to be the one. And it is inviting the sense of I am as this being interacting with another being back to the place where there aren't two beings anymore. There are two manifestations of one being. And you are that one. You are not one of the two that is appearing. They are the manifestation of the one. But you are that one. And so what you really are is gently bringing back the sense I am that is identified with someone back home to your actual essence. So you can thoroughly enjoy the experience of the soulmate, but don't get stuck there. It's not the last step. It is a beautiful thing to experience along the way, but it is not the end. Right? Because the truth is, what you're tasting is the fact that there aren't two at all. There is only the one. And you both are that one. Right? But both need to realize that one. Meaning, you won't be them anymore. You won't be somebody in a relationship. It'll be the experience of someone in a relationship witnessed from a place that is beyond all duality. It's beyond non-duality too. It's not dual or non-dual. It is indescribable. Who you actually are is beyond all description. So I hope that answers it for you. Because these are wonderful when these things happen. They're absolutely wonderful to be thoroughly enjoyed. But they're not the end goal. And that's key. They're not the end goal. You are. You're the end goal. Carl, GP, does conditioned self end up taking on I am qualities? I find myself thinking my thoughts as an acknowledgement before letting go, even though neither thoughts or the I thinking them are real. Very nice question. The conditioned self, right, there's no conditioned self. Right? There is conditioning, and the sense of self that identified with the conditioning. Right? Remember, only consciousness is conscious. Only the self knows. Right? Everything else, the sense of a person, the conditioning, are not sentient. They're not entities. There's no thinking there. There's no self-awareness there. Self-awareness lies one place only, and that's you. Now, recognizing a thought that comes, right? Thinking it, right? Acknowledging it, right? At one time, this is who you thought you were, right? It's just a very open-hearted way of letting it move on. Right? You are learning to detach from it, right? Because it isn't essentially you. Right? We believed it was ours, but the only reason you can acknowledge it and thank it is because you have come to see that it's not you. There's something that's witnessing it just as a thought and not as myself. Right? So thank that too. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you for making this fail, because if it hadn't, I wouldn't have seen this. Right? Muji puts it so beautifully. Grace has been preparing you for this beautiful failure. Right? Because sometimes, when we get things, when things manifest, there are times in our life where, you just think of it and it happens. Everything's flowing. We think everything is wonderful. And oftentimes, that is the least productive for our spiritual inquiry, for our spiritual life. That has been the case with me. I've needed the cosmic 2x4 more often than once to break the stupor that I would find myself in. So yes, the sense of I that is thanking them, right, is also not the ultimate reality, because isn't there something aware of that I thanking? Now, obviously, the thanking I is closer to that than the I completely absorbed in conditioned thoughts. Because that's all there is to the human person. Right? There's not a person there. There's nobody there. It is just conditioning. And you, who are really there, are actually sentient, are consciousness, have identified with that. Or rather, within that consciousness has arisen a sense that you didn't see before that said, I am that. Right? Step back enough, you will even see the sense, I am that latches on to the conditioning. Now just take one more step back and just go to I am, full stop. Just I am. Who's this I am? What is this I am that is not identified at all, that sees identification happening? What's that? Who's that? Now you're on sacred ground. TB says, there's no one here. It's all empty, vacuum space, echoing. But sounds are not coming back. Are you referring to where you take a thought back to where it originates? I'm mute here real quick for a second. Sorry. Boy, what a day. Coughing, technology's going, the incense was strong, the sirens were going. Must be an important message today. So, for you, Taby, my intuition here is all of those things you said, just set them aside, right? They sound very conceptual to me, right? And instead, just follow very simply. I am aware of, right, these thoughts that are here. Right? Now that's something, it doesn't need an explanation. It doesn't need a description, right? It's self-evident. I'm here, and I'm aware of this. Maybe I'm aware of that. It seems empty. Vacuum space. I can't see anything. Perhaps this is where you followed a thought to where it came from, and you couldn't find anything there, right? Right? So, oh, I can't find anything there. The thoughts are just arising. Okay, good. Right? To whom are they arising? Right? Right? Because there's no one there as a person, as a form, as anything, but you're there. Right? Obviously, you're seeing them arise. Right? So, who is that? Right? This is the question. Who am I? Who is it that's seeing all of these? As I've heard Mooji say beautifully, he said, "I'm not interested in your answer, only your looking." Because at first, all the answers we get will come from the old patterns of thinking. They will come from identification with the person. As you just kind of, it's not that because I'm seeing that, and keep going, something deeper will begin to emerge. It'll be just this sense of being, this sense of your own presence, right? That will become increasingly palpable to you. Right? So, Buddha Maitreya says, "Neti neti." Yes, thank you. Yes, indeed. Not this, not this. That is the practice, right? But the other half of it is, okay, it's not this. What is it? It's not just not this, not forever. Because the thoughts you can say not this to can come forever. They can just keep coming. But instead is, oh, if I'm not that, I'm obviously something. Who am I? Who is this? Who is this that's saying neti neti? That's saying that knows that's not me. Who is this? This is the direction, the completion of the process. Right? And how that unfolds for every individual will be a little bit different. Right? Because after all, who can tell you who you are other than you? Which is really strange for us to consider because, well, I don't know who I am. How am I supposed to find out? Well, yeah, you look deep into that not knowing to find what does know. Right? Because only you can know who you are. Nobody else. Not even God. As I think Rumi put it, he said, "I went looking for God and found myself. I went looking for myself and found God." Victoria. Oh, Victoria. Hello. It started to seem to me that at the end of me is kind of empty. Like every association I've made with myself are thoughts, beliefs. So at the end, is myself different from the other ones my mind thinks is boring? Maybe I'm not getting it yet. To the mind, to our way of thinking about ourselves, there won't be anything there because there's no concept there, right? Now, get this. There's no thought, there's no idea there. There's nothing concrete I can hold on to, right? And so from our normal point of perspective, we say, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Right? Because we can't see it as a thing. Right? Right? But if you trust the teacher and you keep going, you say, well, wait a minute. I'm here. Obviously, I'm seeing this emptiness. I'm seeing this void. Right? Who am I? So you don't stop. You keep going. Right? Because all of the thoughts and feelings and experience, the entire richness of life that we are now stepping back from, came from there. But we're so used to that, we've gotten so identified with that, that the source of it looks like there's nothing there. And the mind says, well, this is boring. Right? Well, there's no thing there. Only the absolute infinite potential for everything there is. Yeah, that's all that's there. Right? And of course, until it takes form, it doesn't look like there's anything there. What's the potential of anything until it happens? You don't know the potential's there until it happens. Right? And yet it is. Right? So we're now looking deeply into this, beyond the emptiness, beyond the nothingness, beyond what appears to be this abyss, right? You know, and to just, well, I'm still here, and the question still remains: who am I? Right? And even if I've gotten rid of all of this stuff, and it's empty, right? Well, I'm seeing the emptiness. Right? I'm seeing. Who says it's empty? I do. Well, then who am I that sees even the emptiness, even the nothingness, even the void? Right? Right? So I'm even beyond emptiness and void, and I'm all of it. Who the hell am I? So, oh, yeah, and I get like that. Well, who the hell am I? But notice in that there's this passion. Our focus, our inquiry is getting more and more pointed, more and more almost intense. It's like, I want to know who I am. Right? This is becoming the most important thing there is in my entire life. Right? I'm not ignoring the rest of my life. Right? It's great. We're doing all these things. I have a friend. I got friends. We have a great relationship, right? I'm doing all this stuff, but this is like, but that's all great. This is amazing, right? This is like, this is all stuff that comes and goes in this lifetime. And if I've had multiple lifetimes, I've had similar experiences that I don't even remember now. They're totally gone, right? But this, who I am. Well, that's been there in every single lifetime. The answer to that question is eternity, immortality. It's not just an idea that lasts for a while and goes away. So yeah, who the hell am I? I really want to know. And then you be exposed to spiritual teachers then and now, right? Going all through history, have all said, yeah, keep going. Really, keep going. The treasure's there. Everything came from there. Right? It is the source of everything you're looking for in your life. Right? And more. Right? Enter the Falcon. Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. I'm still learning. Well, good. That's the right attitude to have. I'm still, yes, right? And we want to honor that, right? And But make the spiritual journey not about learning in the sense of acquiring new knowledge. Because all the knowledge we acquire won't tell us who we are. It simply can't do it. Because it will always be relative knowledge, right? It'll always be referring to this body-mind mechanism. Talk about me. So you can, tell me all about GP, right? But that'll simply be this particular persona doing its thing. It won't be about that place, that infinite place out of which GP came, right? Into which he will return. It can't tell you about that. It can only talk about the appearances. So knowledge is great. We need it, right? For all sorts of things. But this isn't learning in the sense of gaining some knowledge. It's really almost unlearning, right? It's going, well, knowledge, good, has its place over here. But, the term in Sanskrit is Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, which means the end of knowledge. Boom, this is it. Knowledge stops here. This is knowing. So, Beatrice says, I guess we're already that. We just get to the point that we resonated with it so much, relate so much with it, so much that we dance as one. Yes. And what I'm talking about here is the process, the practice by which you get to that point where you resonate as one. In fact, it's not you resonating with it. You are it. Right? There's no you getting there anymore. Right? That's all part of how it appears. Right? Which is a beautiful appearance. It's everybody's Buddha story, right? But it's not but ultimately, the one doing the inquiry disappears with the inquiry. You're inquiring to the dismantling of who you thought you were, and then discovering who you always have been. Right? It's almost as if there's a threshold past which that sense of self, which you can purify and discipline and focus and engage in the inquiry, but at some point, even that falls away. Right? There's nothing left to inquire. Right? No one left to do it. Nothing left but the one consciousness that's been here the entire time, the self. Right? Buddha, Maitreya, I've been accessing the universal mind many times, but due to the impurities of my manas, every time I was dragged back into egoness. How do we purify the mind? If it's unstoppable and non-existent, no amount of sadhana meditation can stop the mind. Yes, but until that is actually realized directly, not as simply spiritual knowledge, the process, the practices, the inquiry must go on. The effort must continue to be made until it isn't needed any longer. Right? Notice that you have been accessing the universal mind. Okay? So who are you that has been accessing to it? You see, in there's a very subtle duality, that there's me, then there's this universal mind. When we discover, you could say, okay, the mind doesn't actually exist as a thing. So the mind is simply activity in consciousness of a flow of thoughts. Right? And one of those thoughts, the essential thought, the I thought, is the sense of identification creating and projecting onto this flow, evanescent flow of thoughts and experiences, the sense of a person having that experience. Right? And that person can get very defined, can even have access to the universal mind. Right? So it isn't so much the impurities of the mind, right, of the manas, or even the vasanas, right? Those very deep things, because they too are simply movements in consciousness. It is a disidentification with the appearance of things, with the flow of thoughts, and bringing the sense of I back to the source of all of this, which is what the whole process is about. So the sadhana and meditation are an absolute necessity until that absolute state is reached. Right? And at that point, it obviously, right, you don't need a practice to get where you already are. You don't need a car to get where you already are. But the realization of that does require our sadhana and our meditation. It does. This is the process every sage has had to go through. There's no getting around it. There are people that will do things like, well, it's all an illusion, there's nobody here, and try to kind of, there's nothing for me to do, to try to kind of do an end run around it. And it's a very sticky spiritual attitude to adopt. It's because it sounds like it's the real thing. It sounds like, yes, this is, but it's not. It's not. It's the mind imitating it. It's really good at that, and you can have great experiences of it. Right? So there's a need for the meditation and the sadhana until there isn't. Right? And as long as there's a sense, right, as long as that final question has been answered, the question, who am I, has not been answered for the last time, which is obvious, right? The threshold is crossed, and nobody actually crossed that threshold. Right? The you that was doing the sadhana and the meditation disappears. Until then, that you must do that. The seeker must continue to seek until it realizes that it itself is what is being sought. And then the seeker disappears of its own accord. It's no act of will, it's nothing you do, it's nothing you try. Right? You can't make it happen. This is pure grace. It is pure grace. Right? But it's pure grace that called us all into this in the first place. Right? None of us actually woke up this one morning and said, gee, you know what? I think I'm going to discover who I really am. Right? Right? It was not a choice we made. It happened. Right? The time was right. You were ripe. Everything came together. It was like, now is the time. Right? And it could have even been a result of many terrible things, right, that happened over your life, that kind of prepared the ground. It's not necessarily great things or insights. Yeah, a lot of folks, it was a lot of suffering and a lot of struggle before when to get to that point, because the struggle is much more conducive to letting go and the humility and kind of and letting go of the delusion of self than success is. Success tends to enhance and strengthen the sense of the egoic self. Right? Yeah, well, see, I got this down. I got it down. Look at all these great things that are happening. The sense that somehow I got it together on many different levels. Whereas our failures, if the heart is right, open to grace, can be the doorway that opens that says there's nothing here to get. There's nothing this world can give you. Right? There's nothing that can give you the satisfaction and the deep contentment of knowing who you are. Nothing. Everything else came from there. It is the source of all things. So, Mary, I'm seeing it as the cat is really let out of the bag once we see it and finally be in its totality. Yes, the cat's out of the bag. Right? Once you've glimpsed it, it really is game over. Right? You may get distracted, you may wander different paths, you may, pick up ideas and that sort of stuff, but eventually, right, the time has come. You're going home. As Ramana put it, once you put yourself in the lion's mouth, it's over. Your head's coming off. It take a while. You don't know. Fatima says, thank you much. Don't think I'm stuck. I was just curious, and I also know the question comes from the ego, but the truth is, the less I care about my soulmate, the more signs I am getting. Much love. Beautiful. Perfect. Right? That is really being able to enjoy our humanity without getting attached to it. It is the attachment to our human experience that is what causes the suffering, not the human experience itself. It's our attachment to it and expecting from it something it can't give. Right? And we do that all the time. We expect, this job to satisfy him in all ways. This relationship is perfect, right? But a good job, a great relationship can bring you all sorts of wonderful things. But they can't bring you everything. And they cannot tell you who you are. And so we have to keep going back to the fountain from which it all arises. And be vigilant, because it's really easy to get attached. It's very natural to get attached. Right? And we want to learn how to detach without being indifferent. We want to keep the wholeness, the fullness of our human lives and our human experience, and recognize everything comes and goes. Everything comes and goes. Nothing is. All experiences are for the moment. Right? And if you know that, and there's detachment, you enjoy it while it's here, and there's still contentment when it goes, which it will. Buddha says, yes, step back and I am. Yeah. Perfect. Right. Jim? Perfect. Enter the falcon. We gotta let it go. Be free. Let's live. Just gotta be happy. And others will be happy too. Help each other. Yes. Help each other. Right? And find out where our happiness truly comes from. Love each other. Brotherly, sisterly love. There's never a wrong time for that. That's never outside of any practice. Right? Cheryl asks, is self the same as love? I understand love is just a word, but when I look inside for love, not as a feeling, it seems to be something that is always present. Yeah. Yes. Self is love. It's nothing but love. It knows nothing but love. What we experience as love is the perfume, the feeling of love, the expansiveness, the wholeness, the beauty of it. In every one of its manifestations. There's the love of our work, the love of art, the love of each other, romantic love, familial love, brotherly love, sisterly love, friends, the love of what we do, the love of nature. Right? They're all love, aren't they? Right? They're different manifestations of the same thing. And you can see that love is an aspect of the self. And we see the self reflected in the appearance of love within the manifest world. And we recognize, oh, that's love, that's love, that's love, that's love. What's the essence of love then, right? You can't put a word, you can't say. You can't say. It's completely, it's completely undefinable. But that's the self, right? Because we have a concept of the self, right? So think of the self like a person. It's not a person. It's love itself. It's truth itself. It's awareness itself. It is beyond all human categorization, language, and research. Right? That is, you are beyond all that. Which is why that question, who am I, has to be stayed with, because it is beyond all human knowledge. There is no answer to it other than you. Fox, good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Good to see you. I got you, dude. I needed that answer. Jay, could you explain more about reincarnation? Sorry for typing so much. It's okay. Enter the Falcon. How does the spiritual practice in this lifetime transfer over to another? Doesn't that indicate the existence of a soul? Many think it does, right? Many really think it does. Well, let's see. So many different ways to approach this. So many different ways to approach this. You know what? Give me a second, because I want to see if I can get out of this and come back in and maybe have a better connection for myself with live stream. The live stream won't go away, but I don't know if you guys are experiencing it, but all of a sudden it's just like I'm freezing up, all sorts of. I understand the audio is still coming across. So before I answer that question, I'm going to leave and come back in again. It won't stop the feed. So give me a second to see if I can make this thing work. All right. Well, let's see if I have better luck with better. The tech gods will smile on me a little bit better than going all the way out and coming back in again. Well, let's see. J. Reincarnation. Reincarnation is a teaching, a kind of a tenet in most of the religions of the world. It's only, I think, within. It even has shown up in mystic traditions in Islam and in Judaism and Christian tradition as well. But in the Abrahamic traditions, it's kind of, because they became so oriented towards rules and doing everything right, and God became the great punisher. It's like, no, you get one chance, that's it, because it's a very ethical, moral based, behavior based kind of religion, and so there isn't a growth towards greater purity and the like. You get one chance, you do it or not, and eternal punishment and the like, right? But while that's dominant in the world right now, it's not. It hasn't been around the longest, right? But the idea of a soul's journey, right, where over lifetimes I'm learning, I'm becoming more refined, more sensitive, more open, more awake, more practiced. Buddha would teach, to folks where he was not teaching pure non-duality, would teach about that about the merits gained in a particular lifetime, right? And that would lead to a more auspicious birth in the next. Would even say that the only reason you were able to hear the teachings of a Buddha, these kinds of teachings, is because of the practices you've done in the past. Ramana Maharshi said it as well. Right? Now, on that level of a soul's journey, improving and growing, gaining more to be able to eventually come and experience the deeper teachings, right, is itself a lesser teaching. Right? It's a teaching that that honors the fact that we are, desiring, all of us here, we want to be better people. We want to be kinder. We want to be more patient. We want to be slow to anger. We want to be able to evaluate things without immediately reacting. Right? It's an honoring of that. Now, if you look at it more deeply, from the place of you being the self, right? The one consciousness, the one awareness, the one beingness that is outside of all time. It is not a person, a character, a self in time, as all of reincarnation and past lives and all of that is. Right? It's outside of time. Right? So what is time to it? It's outside of all space. It's dimensionless. It isn't an object in space. Matter of fact, space appears because of it, because of the self. So what that means is that the manifestation of that self, which is beyond all time, is an appearance of the timeless within time. And in that sense, it's an endless loop. Right? This is Shiva's wheel that just keeps going and going and going and going. Right? Now, if I recognize that is just an appearance happening in a flash, from the place of no time, right? It's like a dream. It's just a flash. 1,000 lifetimes, a flash. That's all it is a flash. It's like a dream, right? And the dreamer is in the dream. As Balyani put it, God takes the last step in the journey that never happened. Right? In the dream, you may visit exotic place, be wonderful, be a king, be a pauper, be anything. When you wake from the dream, none of it ever happened. None of it happened. Not one single one of these. The experience could have multiple, we would call multiple lifetimes, including the periods of time in between those lifetimes, right? Where it's almost like contentless sleep, right? Oh, that dream ended. In between lifetimes, it's seen. Its ephemeral nature is clearly seen, right? And then it fades off into a memory, like a dream. And another one picks up. So, oh, it's just, where are you? Even within that context, right? Thinking of, instead of thinking of it as a personal soul's journey, right? Just, well, in this lifetime, I'm Jay, I'm GP, right? I'm Fox, whoever I am, right? And I really think I'm that. I've been completely identified with this character. Right? Now, if there was a past life, I would have been completely identified with that. I would have thought that's who I was. I could have been a different race. I could have been a different gender, spoke differently. I might not even have been on this planet. And yet I would have said, with the same degree of conviction, this is who I am. It's like, well, wait. It can help just kind of, wow. So that's how fragile, that's how thin this identification, as strong as it feels, it's like going to be gone, right? I've seen it numerous times in my life, all the people that I thought I was. You know, go back to a 5-year-old. You didn't think of yourself like this, or 10. I don't know how many dreams, senses of self, identification with a sense of self that changed on you. Have you had it at lifetime? Dozens, hundreds, thousands maybe, right? So, and that's every one of those was a new incarnation, right? Every one of those was, the death of one thing and the birth of another. You could think of the death of you as a 5-year-old gave birth to the 6-year-old or the 10-year-old. Of course, it happened so gradually, but those births and deaths were happening all the time, right? Lifetime after lifetime, like that. Constant transformation, right? Because this isn't stable. It's evanescent. Right? It disappears the moment it appears. So it's always going on. Even to the point where you can see there actually is no birth and no death. There's only a continual transformation that the sense of self, right, has projected onto this continual evanescent flow, the sense of a thing, right, where there is no thing. You go, oh my God, the whole thing's an illusion. It's a delusion. Right? So you can refer back, and you'll hear me refer back to past lives and things like that. But that's not the final teaching. That's not the final word on it. It too is an experience, and that sense of nirvana, right, is simply beyond all of it. The sense of who you really are is completely beyond all of it. So hopefully that answers it for you, Jay. I'm sure I'll hear from you if it doesn't. Thank you, says Astral Karma, you're very welcome. Astral Buddha Mars says, Tat Fat Asi, yes. Buddha, thank you so much for the answer. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Fox, I have a question. GP, please, and thank you. Can you talk about the before enlightenment, chop wood, carry wood, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry wood? Kind of what you were talking about, like when we're no longer looking, we still do the same. It refers to the very simple sense that what changes is a shift in perception, not anything real or actual. It's that simple. We no longer see things the way they are. We're no longer seeing through the eyes of an illusion. Like, nobody here believes that the earth is stationary and that the sun is going around it. Nobody believes that, right? Many people, well, everybody in the West, not everywhere in the world, by the way, it's a uniquely Western thing that happened. That we were sitting still, and that the sun was going around us. Now, when we realized that wasn't the case, did anything change? We still refer to the sunrise and sunset, right? Because to our senses, it looks like that, but now we've gone beyond the illusion. The perception has shifted, but none of the experience has. We just now see it as it actually is. That's all this is. Right? People get the idea that somehow it's this, this horrible thing happens, right? And everything just disappears and there's nothing here anymore because it's all an illusion. There's a difference between an illusion and a hallucination. Hallucination is something you alone are it is completely within the mind. So it's not that far off. But an illusion is a misperception of something that's actually here. Right? What we call the human life, the world, the universe, plants, animals, things, they're not going to disappear. Right? And enlightenment, they're still here. You just don't see them anymore as separate from you. You see the oneness of them. But they're exactly the same as they were before. No different whatsoever. Right? And you may do exactly the same job you were doing, have the same relationships, do everything. Right? Exactly the same. Like everything else, it will change over time, right? Because nothing is static. Right? But that's part of the deal. You no longer have a problem with that. You let it happen. So that's all that means. Right? It's only a shift in perception. You're now seeing it through the eyes of the self and not through the eyes of the imaginary person. The person is the illusion projected on what is in fact the manifestation of the self. That's how this whole thing works. Thank you, Fox. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see you. Victoria B. As we come from one source, are we all the I? Are we all the I? Are all the I the same at the end? Yeah. Well, you know what? If I was to give you an answer, your mind would grab it and turn it into a concept. What I would say is, I want to show you where to find the answer to that. Right? Follow your I. Right now, your I is the only one you know. Your sense of I am, right? So when you say, who am I, right? You're not referring to anybody else. It's only you. Who am I? Right? Now you might think, well, who are they? But notice that I is first person, right? the sense I is there before there's a you or an other, right? Before there's a he, she, and it, or they, or them. Before any of that can be there, there's an I. So even in our thoughts about you and them and he's and she's, there is there, directly or indirectly, the I thought. It's there. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So follow your I, because that one you know for sure. My I, everybody else, yeah, you don't know, right? You know what's going on in there, right? Right? And you have a sense of there being a bunch of different I's, right? He's got an I, I've got an I. We're all following this back to the same source. You don't know that, right? You don't really know what's going on anywhere except here. So take your own I and follow it until you know the answer to that question, right? Until you get to the end, right? And then it'll be clear as a bell, right? And it will be beyond any answer I could possibly give you, right? Which would just be an approximation anyway, right? It wouldn't be the answer. The answer can only come from you. Actually, folks, all the questions that we're asking and answering here, all the things, can only come from you. My only job is to point, right, to where you'll find it, right? So, music for pets. Hi, GP. Loving your teaching. Question about addictions. I'm aware that I am consciousness identifying as a man who drinks and keeps the same addictive patterns. I ask who I am, I who thinks he needs to drink, but keep going around in circles with this. Is it a case of keep asking who is the I that drinks? Thank you so much. You're going to want to dive into it more deeply and get it out of the head, get it out of your thinking and into the body, and start feeling the attachment to it. Right? Because yes, that inquiry, who is it that actually wants that, could work under some circumstances. But since it just keeps you spinning, it means it's still just in the head. So get out of the head and instead start putting your attention on the actual impulse itself, right? That feeling of reaching for. What is it? What are you reaching? What is reaching? Obviously, there's something that needs satisfying. There's something discontent there. Okay? There's something that's reaching out for the relief that brings. Right? So if you keep going back to, right, what am I actually reaching for? What is it I'm really desiring? What is it that will bring me a contentment that won't need to reach for something external? Now this is goes a little bit into the realm of emotional healing, which I think is for most people, especially in the West, it's essential that some of that go on simultaneously, right? So that behavior that's obviously destructive and causing you suffering, right, doesn't just get sustained by keeping it in the head. Right? There's some impulses going on they're deep inside, they're unconscious, there's unsatisfied parts of ourselves, there's parts of ourselves that don't feel adequate, don't feel loved, that eventually at some point in our lives reached for something got a temporary relief from that emotional pain, and that's how it became an addiction. Right? Because it did provide a relief, but because it's only temporary and can never be anything else, we have to keep going back to it. Right? And until then it becomes kind of a vicious cycle in and of itself. Right? And so just saying, who is it that's drinking, right? While some rare instances may be enough, right, it's probably not going to get to the heart of it. It's instead a much more deep, personal, and human inquiry into what's the real suffering, right, that's here, that this is a solution to. You have to realize all addictions are a solution. They're an incomplete solution, but they are a solution. Right? They're a way of getting away from a pain, an internal, emotional, spiritual pain or suffering that we didn't have any other resources to deal with before. Right? That's the nature of all addiction. So if instead you say, okay, where's this pain inside of me? Where's this suffering? It's a very kind way of approaching yourself. It's not judgmental, right? Because based on the resources you had at the time, you found a temporary solution. Right? But like all temporary solutions that we try to make permanent, they bring other problems with them. Till the point where, no, it isn't a solution anymore. It's causing as many problems as it's solving. And you go, oh, okay, I've got to go into this more deeply. Right? I really have to. I really have to look at this as something that I'm suffering here, right? And I don't want to suffer. Now, that's a very clear insight, because that within us that does not want to suffer is the true I that is no longer allowing you to be comfortable with the behavior that was okay before. Right? That is the true I. That is really you. Right? Right? That is the one who's asking who thinks they need to. Where is this pain coming from that I then identified with, used as a solution, and now I am this fellow who's stuck in it. It's not enough to just say, who's the fellow that's stuck in it? It's like, go more deeply into it with a lot of kindness towards yourself, a lot of respect for our suffering, and the suffering that we have carried our whole lives, and the suffering that was there that gave rise to the behavior in the first place. Because if it wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened. If that's not there, addiction doesn't happen, because there's nothing we need to compensate for. Right? So there's where you want to put. Where's the hurt me? Where's this pained sense of myself that needs my loving attention? Yeah. So try that out, my friend, and don't be afraid to get some help, right, from others. I mean, if you go to like professional therapists and that sort of thing, they won't give you this, right, but it can give you a lot of helpful tools for doing that. So don't rule that out like you shouldn't do it. This is the most important as far as I'm concerned. But making sure you stay healthy and whole, your life stays together, that the habit, I don't know how extreme the habit's gotten. It may not even be extreme at all. Maybe quite functional and the like. But nonetheless, it's obviously now it's on your mind, which means that who you really are is waking up, and what used to be okay is no longer acceptable. And now it goes, well, how do I get out of this quagmire that I've gotten myself into? Right? Stay close to that sentiment. right? That's there that says, now I'm suffering from being in this, right? So there are layers here that you may need to go through. Right? So, thank you, music. I really hope that helps. I'm quite sensitive to people with addictions. I've had my share. Love that. Pure grace, says Beatrice. Thank you. It is pure grace, right? Yeah, I know it is self-inquiry and I'm doing the inquiry, but the whole thing is the true I, who you really are, the only real consciousness and love there is lovingly bringing the sense of I back to itself. It starts with pure absolute being. Out of the absolute being arises the pure sense I am. Just pure beingness, pure emptiness, pure presence. Right? Totally pure. But out of that sense of I am comes the entire universe. That I am is the God. Everything springs from. Look around. Everything in the universe expresses I am. Everything. No matter what it is, look at it. Right? It's I am. The things behind me, the bed, the couch, the thing. I am. Being. The expressive being. The ineffable, inscrutable being. And of that same I am of manifestation arises the potential and the actual experience, I am that. The identification with the form. It isn't a mistake, folks. It's not like you're making a mistake in the identification. You're not. This has happened. This is just the way it happened. Right? And now that whole process is now folding back in on itself. Right? As the identified self returns to the pure sense of I am, or just beingness, or just the sense I am, right? Which then folds even further back into the indescribable, indetectable, unknowable knowingness from which all of it emerged. Right? So you see, while we personally feel like we're doing sadhana and meditation and the like, it's just part of being called back. And the whole thing is being orchestrated by the pure infinite love of the self, and experience that as in our human lives. It's called grace. You're not doing this. The power that brought me here must bring me home. I love to quote that from Rumi. Mary, I have a question. Sorry. If we are a drop in the ocean of the totality, does that not mean we have the capacity to know? And to know all? It's because we are in a specific form. We are only limited to what this form can handle. Or does it really matter not much, since growth and knowledge, eternal and constantly expanding? I do not feel there is no way to know it all, as God is learning about its own possibilities through its aspects, and I don't think I would have it any other way. It gives life its oomph. It's like all of these things, it is both. Right? You are the totality experiencing itself as a drop. And the God is not learning about his possibilities through aspects. It's not an act of will. It's not an act of doing. So it's not learning in this. It is the infinite knowingness that is inexhaustible, that is forever manifesting itself in ever-transforming form. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't need, right? There's no impulse or anything. It's just its nature. It's just the nature of the self. Period. So the drop, right, that is, experiencing myself as a drop, right, being the entire ocean, the totality, right, which is beyond all knowledge. There's no knowledge there. How could there be? It's infinite. Knowledge is a form that appears. I know this or that. So in order for that to appear, a drop appears, which is a particular combination of knowledge. And experience and perceptions. Right? Without that, right, there'd be no universe. There'd be no experience, because all the universe is the self seeing itself from a particular point of view. Right? But it never is that one particular point. It's always the totality, which is beyond the possibility of knowing or expressing. So it's beyond learning. Learning is temporary, isn't it? Stuff you used to know, you don't know anymore. Stuff that you used to think was true isn't, it isn't true anymore. The knowledge that was useful one time isn't useful anymore. Knowledge is relative and transient. It's not the knowingness that is simply the indescribable, beyond, prior to even the sense I am. And yet, simultaneously, all of this is being experienced. By whom is it being experienced? I bring everybody back to where this whole thing started. By whom is this being experienced? You think it's the drop that it's experiencing it. But it's not. The drop can't experience it. Your hand can't see it, doesn't see me. I see the hand. All the forms, concepts, ideas, knowledge, all of it does not perceive me. None of it's sentient. None of it's self-aware. You are. Which means you're not the drop, are you? Well, then who are you that is perceiving? Follow that. It's very deep, but it's not far. I guess that's where I would put it. And yes, I wouldn't have any other way. It's got to be infinitely expressive. Yeah. If God, the self, was exhaustible, then we'd get to some point, maybe billions, trillions of years from now, be like, well, that's it. That's all I got. Right? It is inexhaustible. Now, it's impossible to conceive of inexhaustible, isn't it? You can't do it. It's beyond knowledge. It's just, yeah. And yet, we know it is. You know it is. How do you know? Who knows? Who would know that? The drop? Who would know the inexhaustible nature of the self other than the self? And you know it, don't you? So then who are you? I think I took care of your other question there too, Mary, that you're a follow-up there. Perfectly Poor Gaming. Great name. Hello to you. Welcome. Music for Pet. Thank you, GP. That does help. I like the subtle separation you mentioned of the I that does not want to drink, to seek to end suffering. Kind self healing feels the right path. Yes. Yeah. Because the I that doesn't want to drink is also being seen. Right? It's a more awake version. It's certainly much more in touch with the truth, right? But even something deeper than that is seeing it. something deeper that is even aware of all the suffering that's been going on. Mary Sykes, beautiful G, you're breaking my old God concepts back so that I can see clearly that it is beyond the old teachings. I need to come visit you for a while. Well, I would love to do some live things with people. It's just, not being a celebrity spiritual teacher, it's hard for me to get a bunch of people to come to enough people there for me to be able to actually do it, right? To put it on, and because doing something live in person where you can hang out with people and dig into these kinds of things. It takes a chunk of money to be there, and I can only do that if I got enough people coming and pre-registered, so I can cover all the expenses of it, so it could happen. I'd love to do it. I'd absolutely love to do it. As a matter of fact, I'm happy to come places where anybody is, if you can get a group of people together and somebody's home or something, just enough to cover my expenses and a little bit for food and almond milk lattes. So, I'm happy to do that if it can be worked out. So by all means, there's really is nothing better than the direct transmission, communication, live and in person. Nothing better. So, music for pets. Ironically, we all want to be happy, but are already what we seek. Just my I gets in the way. Yeah, it's just the I that gets in the way. We all want to be happy. Now, follow that sense of happiness is really what I'm looking for. Right? And that's true. It's a guiding light, right? That begins to show that, guess what? All the things in the world, all these things, aren't making me happy. I've tried. Right? Many times I've doubled down on them. But maybe they can't. Maybe they simply do not have the capacity to make me happy, other than for a moment, other than just a little bitty bit. So, perfectly poor gaming. I desired money last night, so I manifested $120. Congratulations. Congrats. Eva, what a beautiful satsang today. Just light and clarity. So much thank you, G. You're welcome, Eva. CM, try to do a vertical live. It seems like YouTube will recommend you to a lot more people than the horizontal one. And you may grow... Oh. A vertical? You mean like from the phone? A whole live? From the phone, or just short things? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Can you send a message to me, an email, about how that works? Maybe I'll try it. Because YouTube seems to prefer that format. Maybe I don't know. Can you tell me what to do about that? Yeah. You can send an email to support@omschool.co. Here, I'll stick it in here for you. Support@omschool.co. Maybe I can, figure something out. And give it a try. See what happens. Ireland is calling you. I have quite a few people in Ireland. Over. It's I would so love it. I would so love it. Fatima says, truthfully, I do not understand. You're not a celebrity spiritual teacher. Much better than Tully, in my opinion. Well, thank you. I don't know Eckhart personally. Yeah, but we'll have those that that we appeal to, and it's not really up to me. I how it appears through this particular vehicle, and to whom and the like, isn't really up to me. I'll try different things, to draw more people in. No problem. But yeah. Beyond that, it's kind of out of my hands. It's even beyond the hands of the YouTube gods. I'll just let it unfold as it unfolds. I just love doing it. I love doing it. Yeah. Fizzled out there for a minute. Yeah. And Perfectly Poor Game says he does a vertical stream too. It's a plugin. There's a plugin called. It's simple. Oh, interesting. I will help me out, guys. I will look into it. Thank you for CM. Send me an email. So people agreeing with Fatima. Well, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah. Thank you, GP, for your time and guidance. You're very welcome, Victoria. Very welcome. So good to have you. And I'm so glad you're in the tapping training. I think it's the same, Victoria. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. If not, well, come join us. All right, everybody. Love to you all. Time for me to go have something to eat. Thank you, guys. Love you. Love you, love you, love you.